And I gave her the biggest hug that I could. And when she saw me, she's like, "Oh man, finally somebody I see that's on my side."
Right, they can relate.
She was getting hit with everything left and right, and I just said, I hugged her. I said, "I'm so proud of you."
A press release or headline doesn't start the story they never intended you to hear. It starts with a hug. It was more than simply a touching moment captured on tape when Cheryl Miller put her arms around Caitlin Clark. It appeared to be compassion to the outer world. However, that embrace broke something far greater for others who were watching. It broke through the meticulously constructed barriers of quiet that surrounded the most sinister operation in WNBA history. Because that hug was more than simply consolation, it was disobedience. A statement, an indication that their destructive campaign had now been revealed to the league, the veterans, and every secret hand at work. Whispers have been going around for months. Too many fouls were disregarded. Too many voices abruptly becoming silent. There were far too many times when Caitlin Clark, possibly the most significant rookie the league had ever seen, was abandoned, alone, and undercut. Music insiders began disclosing bits of what sounded more like psychological warfare than rookie hazing after fans and experts took note. Operation Balance was the name given to it, and when Cheryl Miller came forward, even if it was just to provide an embrace, she validated what many had thought but were still unable to substantiate, that Caitlin Clark was doing more than just competing on the court. She was competing against a system that was intended to crush her confidence, take away her prominence, and remove her from the future of women's basketball. The curtain was ripped aside, and that hug altered everything. It revealed the gaps in a narrative that the league did all in its power to conceal. And beyond that curtain is a plot so well-planned and brutal that you won't be able to view the WNBA the same way after you learn how the parts fit together. The more you learn, the more obvious it is that this was no accident. It wasn't bad luck or the typical harsh reception that newcomers receive. What insiders disclosed suggests that it was meticulously planned, meticulously carried out, and completed. There was a concerted attempt to limit Caitlin Clark's ascent. According to leaked internal documents, yes, actual written records from within the league, Operation Balance was the name of the plan. The intention to ensure that no player, regardless of skill or popularity, could tip the balance of power in the league away from the experienced. 3 pillars supported Operation Balance. First, music keep Clark out of the media. Make sure her accomplishments were overshadowed by more prominent veteran tales, control the headlines, and reroute attention. Secondly, allow physical targeting without repercussions. Referees are turning a blind eye. Egregious infractions are now handled with severe defense. Third, isolate her emotionally, a tactic more harmful than anything that transpired on the court, cutting her off from teammates, depriving her of allies, and undermining her self-esteem. This is unsettling because it went beyond basketball. This had nothing to do with preserving a legacy or defending the rim. It was competition disguised as psychological warfare. This is the portion they were reluctant to reveal. According to insiders, neither a single team nor even a few IRA veterans were responsible for the operation. It was coordinated, systematic, and approved at higher levels than anyone had anticipated because it takes more than one hit to break a rising star. She begins to doubt her own strength as you gradually erode her, and that's just how Operation Balance was intended to work. However, Clark was not the source of this plan's flaws. They resulted from an error, an unguarded moment when a close friend or relative said a bit too much. Sophie Cunningham was that person. There is a breaking point for every conspiracy. And for Operation Balance, it was a verbal blunder. Sophie Cunningham, who is renowned for her roughness on the court, was unaware that she was going to reveal the biggest secret in the league. She disclosed something unsettling in what she believed to be a private conversation. There was evidence that Clark's treatment was part of a planned strategy rather than a happenstance. Sources claimed that Cunningham acknowledged that the message was very clear in the Phoenix Mercury locker room. We will demonstrate the true meaning of the W to her. Music. It may initially sound like a typical rookie introduction with veterans putting the newcomer to the test, but pay close attention. Clark didn't need to prove herself in this situation. Sending a message was the goal of this. Instead of being spontaneous, the sentences held the weight of strategy. The Mercury were getting ready for more than just a basketball game. They were getting ready to take part in a demonstration that the league had approved. Phoenix became the testing ground for Operation Balance as a result of the locker room edict. On their court, there were neither sporadic fouls nor intense rivalry. The experiment was controlled. Every forceful blow, every contemptuous look, and every foul that went unnoticed, all contributed to a larger scheme to test how far they could push Clark without raising any red flags. This is where it gets indisputable. Cunningham's disclosure is entirely consistent with the materials that were disclosed. The pattern, the language, and the intention all make sense. Phoenix wasn't the only one. They were the first link in a chain that extended throughout the league. According to several insiders, similar marching orders were delivered to at least 6 additional teams. The same message in several locker rooms. Keep the veteran safe. Keep the rookie isolated. And never allow Caitlin Clark's fame to overshadow the existing hierarchy. All of a sudden, those seemingly unlucky moments weren't at all random. These weren't normal growing pains. The use to the ribs, the deliberate trips, and the silence from teammates during her most trying times. They were calculated actions in a game that Clark never consented to participate in, and that was all revealed by Cunningham's error. What followers had been whispering online for months was confirmed by a single thoughtless remark. Not only was Clark up against fierce competition, she was approaching an ambush. However, if words could demonstrate intent, the subsequent numbers would establish it beyond dispute. Because no one can adequately describe the story that the statistics reveal. You can ignore rumors. Conversations that have been leaked can be refuted, but numbers don't lie. Additionally, the data from Caitlin Clark's rookie season on paper not only raises questions, but also blows the lid off Operation Balance. In 2024, Clark drew 4.5 personal fouls per game, more than any other rookie in recent memory. That is, to put things in perspective, rookies typically bear the brunt of physical play. It's a necessary aspect of getting used to the pros, but not in this manner. Clark wasn't merely adapting. She was receiving punished at a rate never seen before. However, this is the point at which it becomes impossible rather than suspicious. Clark alone was the target of 17.1% of all egregious fouls in the league. 17%. Consider that nearly 1 to 5 of the most hazardous fouls in the league were committed by a rookie on one squad. It's not unlucky. It's not a coincidence. Coordination is that the statistical likelihood of such occurring spontaneously is almost non-existent. It's similar like tossing a coin 100 times and getting heads 80 times. Eventually, you stop referring to it as random chance and start referring to it as intentional targeting. It was more than just fouls, too. Additionally, the timing of them was important. Many of these hits occurred during times when Clark was intended to be humiliated. It was deliberate disruption when she was getting hot offensively, when the Fever had gained momentum, or just following a major highlight play. Blows that are both physical and psychological. Even her first WNBA basket, which ought to have been a league-wide event, was soon eclipsed. Opponents doubled down rather than uniting around a generational event. The statistics demonstrate that as soon as Clark demonstrated her belonging, the level of targeting increased. It seems as though the operation's next phase was initiated by its success. And according to insiders, that is precisely what took place. According to communications that were leaked, Operation Balance didn't slow down after Clark shown that she could handle the physical play. Instead, it changed course. Hitting harder wasn't the only tactic. It was about delving further because the league had a more subtle scheme lurking in the shadows if she couldn't be broken by simple fouls. There is a plan for every great scheme. Operation Balance was no exception. It wasn't disorderly. It wasn't spontaneous. It was designed with 4 intentional stages. They were all intended to drive Caitlin Clark to her breaking point. Physical intimidation is phase 1. This was the most conspicuous stage, the first act to make the youngster feel the blows and wonder if her body can withstand the intensity of the league. Late elbows, excessive fouls, and harsh screens that went too far, all were put up with by referees who appeared to be blind all of a sudden. You don't belong here is the underlying message. Suppression of the media is phase 2. They went on to the next weapon, silence. If Clark and her both survived the blows, her records were hidden and her highlights were minimized in favor of established narratives. Media figures who had previously lauded her abruptly changed their tone, reiterating eerily similar talking points about how unprepared or overhyped she was. It wasn't natural criticism. It was control over the narrative. Emotional isolation is the third phase. The worst stage was this one. Insiders claimed that Clark's teammates were instructed to avoid him. There was no instructed to avoid him. There was no encourage,